The Millionaire and the Black Beggar, a story of hope and change. Arthur stood center stage, sharp, in his tailored black suit, the polished image of success. The grand hall buzzed with applause and loud laughter, chandeliers sparkling overhead like stars. Around him, the elite smiled and clinked glasses, celebrating achievements his millions had meticulously built. But tonight, something was off. A sudden commotion near the gilded doors stole Arthur's attention. A man, ragged and weathered, skin marked by years but eyes fiercely alive, was being dragged by two burly security guards. His name was Samuel, a black homeless man, they said, a war veteran, his back hunched but fighting every inch of the way. Arthur's chest tightened. The room's roar faded. The polished smiles blurred into strangers. Samuel's desperate shouts sliced through the noise, raw and piercing, filled with pain and defiance. "I've earned respect! I've sacrificed! You can't just throw me out!" But the guards didn't listen. They yanked him toward the doors like trash. Security was cold, brutal, like they wanted to erase him. For a heartbeat, Arthur saw past the mask he wore. A mask built on money, power, distance. Childhood memories flooded back. The cramped streets where he'd kicked a cracked soccer ball with worn-out friends. The houses too small, the nights cold, the hunger real. Faces he tried to bury behind luxury cars and champagne toasts. Faces full of hope, too. His hands clenched, trembling. The guilt squeezed harder than his expensive watch. How many people like Samuel had he left behind, swallowed by the city's shadows? How many dreams crushed because they never had a shot? Around him, no one blinked at the scene, laughter continuing as if a man didn't just get ripped away like broken glass. But Samuel fought harder. His eyes locked with Arthur's, full of something fierce and raw. Pain, hope, a question. Who was this man who'd risen so far and turned his back? What did this crazy connection mean? Arthur's breath slammed into his throat. Then a whispered rumor hit him like a punch. Samuel had a letter, a secret that could shatter everything Arthur built. A letter buried in the past like a ticking bomb. Fear surged. Protect the empire or face the collapse. The crowd's cheers surged back, blinding and loud. But inside, Arthur's world stopped. He stood frozen on a razor's edge. Could he keep this shiny mask? Stay the perfect millionaire? Or did he have the guts to admit his scarred past, to help a man who might know things better left hidden? Samuel's stare held steady. Hope and defiance tangled in his gaze like lightning before the storm. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. What will Arthur do? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. Zink! And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Arthur stood there, heart racing. Samuel's fierce gaze still locked onto his. The air felt electric with tension. And then, it happened. A scream cut through the laughter. A woman's voice. Shrill and terrified. "He's got a gun!" Gasps rippled through the crowd, eyes wide with dread. Arthur turned to see a figure in the doorway. A man, masked, shouting, brandishing a weapon that gleamed under the chandeliers. Panic erupted. People dove for cover. Chairs toppled. Glasses shattered. Arthur's world spun. This was no longer just a party. It was chaos. Samuel's expression shifted instantly, fear and recognition mingling in his eyes. No! He fought against the guards harder now, every muscle straining. "Don't do this! It's not what it seems." But the guards ignored him, pushing Arthur closer to the man with the gun. "Stay down! Everyone stay down!" The masked man bellowed, waving the gun wildly. Fear twisted in Arthur's gut. He ducked behind a nearby pillar, his breath quickening. He glanced back at Samuel, who was still struggling. Something deeper burned in Samuel's stare, a desperate plea mixed with urgency. "What does he want?" Arthur shouted to no one in particular, his voice barely cutting through the frenzy. He had to know. "Arthur!" Samuel yelled, voice cracking. "Help me! I can explain!" Then, all at once, the masked man turned his attention to Arthur. "You, Millionaire, you have something I need." Oh! His voice dripped with malice, eyes wild under the mask. In that terrifying moment, a spark of recognition flashed between Samuel and the masked man. They knew each other. "What? Why?" Arthur stammered, confusion flooding through him. "Because he's been holding out on me. You owe me, Samuel. You owe me the truth." The masked man's finger hovered over the trigger. Or else. Arthur's mind raced. What truth? What did Samuel know? The crowd was a storm of chaos, but for him, time slowed to a crawl. Samuel's breath was heavy, his voice steady despite the danger. "Arthur, listen. It's about the letter. About your father." The words hit hard. Arthur's heart pounded. His father? The man he barely remembered. The man he'd spent years trying to escape. "Your father was involved in something dangerous," Samuel continued, urgency cracking through his tone. "There's a reason I'm here, and it ties us all together." The masked man moved forward, his gun now aimed directly at Arthur. "Enough games. Give me what you owe, or I'll make this ugly." Arthur's mind was racing, connecting dots he never wanted to see. Was Samuel the key to secrets buried deep in his past? The past he thought was dead and gone? The fear in the air shifted, a new tension threading through the crowd. Suddenly, the guards stepped back, uncertain now, glancing at Arthur, waiting for his reaction. Should he protect the empire he built on lies? Or seek the truth that could destroy him? The room seemed to suspend in horror, every face frozen in shock, every eye wide with disbelief. A subtle shift in Samuel's expression told Arthur this was bigger than he could comprehend. The stakes were rising, shadows deepening. "Arthur!" Samuel yelled again, desperation breaking through. "I can help you see the truth!" But we don't have much time. The threat looming over him felt more menacing than ever, and a twist of fate was closing in. Arthur's response could change everything. Would he step into the unknown, or cling to his illusions. The atmosphere hummed with urgency, and all eyes were on him. What would he decide? Arthur's breath slammed into his throat. The moment stretched. Everything around him blurred into noise. But Samuel's fierce gaze cut through it all. A tidal wave of emotions crashed over Arthur, drowning the laughter, the clinking glasses, the polished masks. The weight of choice pressed down like a mountain. And then it happened. A blinding flash! Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the hall, sharp and deafening. The chandeliers rattled, a few glasses shattered, and gasps filled the air. Arthur's heart raced as the crowd jolted, heads turning towards the source of the chaos. What was happening? The guards momentarily halted, shocked. "Stay back! Everyone stay back!" a voice shouted. But no one moved. Fear had frozen them in place. Arthur's eyes darted to the door as he took a hesitant step forward. The noise continued, frantic and chaotic. Beyond the entrance, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, tall and commanding, cloaked in a long dark coat. Wild hair framed her face, and in her hand a gun glimmered. "Let him go!" she screamed, her voice trembling with rage and grief. Samuel's eyes widened. "Alice," he whispered, disbelief washing over him like a wave. Arthur's stomach churned. Who was she? Nobody in the hall had a clue. But Samuel did. This stranger had a hold on his past, a connection that sent shockwaves through Arthur's mind. What did she know? "You don't have to do this," one of the guards shouted, raising his hands in submission. ... Arthur moved closer, his heart pounding. He needed to know. "Stop! Please!" he called, but the chaos drowned out his plea. "I've come to get what's mine!" she shouted, tears streaming down her cheeks, mixing with anger. "You took everything from us! You can't erase our lives anymore!" The crowd murmured, confusion spreading like fire. Arthur's thoughts raced. Who did this woman think he was? Was she referring to his rise in wealth? The spectators began to pull out their phones, capturing every moment. Then he saw it. A glimmer in her hand. A letter, tattered and stained. This letter will expose your lies, Arthur. Your empire is built on the backs of men who fought for this country, like Samuel. A cold chill racked around him. The letter? A secret? His heart sank. All the years of work, the struggles to rise above the muddy streets, threatened to shatter with just one simple piece of paper. Samuel. "You need to tell her the truth!" Arthur heard himself shout, but his voice felt distant, lost in the panic. Samuel shook with a mix of anger and confusion. "You don't understand, Arthur. She's my sister!" Arthur's eyes widened. Everything spun around him. The woman with the gun, the desperate, wild-eyed protector of Samuel, was family. The shock rippled through the crowd as whispers turned into gasps. Unbelief hung thick in the air. Everything Arthur thought he knew split apart like glass. As the silence rolled in, Samuel met Arthur's gaze again, a question lingering like smoke. Could it be true? This connection turned the world upside down. The urgency in Alice's eyes, the fire in Samuel's, twisted the entire narrative. And somewhere deep within, Arthur felt something break. He had to move, to act. This moment, this truth, demanded a choice. With uncertainty crashing in, the hall felt both too small and too vast. Would he lose everything for the sake of honesty? Or would he wrestle the ghosts of his past back into the shadows? The gun trembled in Alice's hand as she took a step forward, squarely aimed at Arthur now. The whole world held its breath. The whole world held its breath. Arthur could see the tension in Alice's body, the way her fingers trembled against the cold steel of the gun. Samuel, wide-eyed, seemed caught between recognition and fear. The moment felt unreal, like a film flickering in fast forward. Arthur's heart raced. "Stop!" "We can talk," he shouted again, desperate. But Alice's eyes were wild, her pain raw and palpable. "You're not listening! You think you can live in a castle built on broken dreams? You took everything from us! I won't let you do more damage!" Suddenly, the lights went out. Complete darkness engulfed the hall. A murmur of confusion surfaced. The hum of anxiety twisted around them like a chokehold. A shot rang out, a deafening crack in the stillness. Arthur's heart leapt into his throat. He instinctively dropped to the floor, feeling the cold marble beneath him, slick with sweat. A collective gasp swallowed the crowd. Was someone hurt? Silence fell like a heavy veil, leaving only the thundering pulse in his ears. Lights flickered back on, too slow to chase away the shadow of fear. As they returned, Arthur scanned the room for Alice, but she was gone. Panic rose, his eyes wide. Where was she? Had she really shot someone? Then chaos erupted around him. People surged towards the exits, stumbling over one another. In the stampede, Arthur spotted Samuel being pulled away by the guards. In that second, the truth hit hard. Alice had been trying to protect her brother. But what had just transpired? Arthur's breath hung in his chest like a weight. He had to find her. The masked man, who just moments ago seemed the primary threat, was now among the fray, hands raised, shouting warnings. "Everyone, stop! It's not what you think!" Arthur's heart sank anew. What was happening? The crowd began to disperse, creating a chaotic swirl of confusion. Then silence fell again. Everyone froze, watching a figure emerge from the shadows at the back of the hall. It was Alice. But she wasn't alone. She stood side by side with another man, his stance relaxed amid the anxious crowd, his smile chillingly calm. "Let me introduce you all," he said in a smooth voice that echoed across the silence. "I'm Derek, and what you've just witnessed is just the beginning." Derek's presence exuded a strange power. His eyes glinted with confidence. Arthur felt something cold slide down his spine. Alice looked shaken but resolute, glancing between Arthur and Derek. "You don't understand. We are family. He knows the truth, and you need to hear it. All of it." Arthur's mind raced. Family? What kind of tangled web had he stepped into? He blinked, grappling with 1,000 thoughts. "Samuel's connection to your past is deeper than you realize," Derek continued, voice dripping with authority. "Your father wasn't just involved in something dangerous, he was in too deep. And now, this letter?" He motioned towards Alice, still gripping the letter tightly. "It's a key to everything, a truth you might not survive." The air felt heavy. Tension thickened to a boil. Arthur felt his world tilt. What truth? What terrible secret had his father hidden? Then the unexpected hit again. Samuel broke free from security's grasp, lunging forward. "Alice, don't do this! Arthur, please!" His eyes screamed desperation. "Stop!" Arthur shouted. "What is going on?" The room held its breath yet again. Samuel's face twisted with anguish. "Arthur, your father, he didn't just leave. He was taken. There are people still hunting us." "What?" Arthur's stomach lurched, his past spinning out of control, unraveling like a thread pulled too hard. This was no longer about wealth or class. It was about survival. His survival. "Arthur!" Samuel's voice broke through the noise. "You have to trust us. You can't just walk away." The truth hung in the air, white hot and raw. Arthur stood on shifting ground, adrenaline coursing through his veins. The chaos. Now just a backdrop to the revelation pulsing before him. What had he truly inherited? And as the floor trembled beneath him, he wondered if he really could escape the shadows of his father's past. Arthur stood frozen, the chaos of the room narrowing around him. Samuel's stare pierced through the crowd, pulling at the strings of guilt and fear inside Arthur's chest. In that heavy silence, Arthur felt time shift, stretching out between the two men like a chasm. Then, suddenly, a loud crash shattered the air. The gilded door swung open before they could be properly pushed. In rushed a wild-eyed woman, hair drenched and disheveled, drenched in shadows, with a look of sheer terror painted across her face. Gasps erupted from the crowd, like fireworks breaking the spell. "Stop!" she cried, voice straining with a desperate edge. "You can't take him! He's innocent!" The guards hesitated, confusion furrowing their brows, still gripping Samuel tightly. The applause died, replaced by whispers of what was happening. Arthur felt a sharp twist in his gut. What had this woman just implied? "Samantha?" Samuel croaked, eyes widening. "What are you doing here?" A tidal wave of emotions flickered in the silence. Rage, joy, and dread mingled in his tone. "After everything, I couldn't let them take you. I couldn't!" Panic surged in her eyes as she took in the scene, locking on to Arthur for the first time. You don't know who he is, do you?" Arthur felt the breath escape his lungs. "What do you mean?" he demanded, the words tasting of disbelief. "What can he possibly—" Samantha cut him off, locking into his gaze, her voice sharpened with urgency. "Samuel is not just a beggar. He's your brother." The room disintegrated into a web of shocked faces, the air thick with disbelief, and a pressure like a tidal wave pushing against Arthur. He staggered back, feeling crushed under the weight of a truth he had never fathomed. His mind raced, images flashing like a video stuck on repeat. His past, the choices, the family he'd lost. But Samuel? How? Why had no one told him? The whispers around him morphed into a cacophony, muttered questions swirling like a storm. "No way," someone said. "That can't be true. He's just a what?" Samuel barked, rage igniting anew in his eyes. "Just a man. Just a forgotten soul." He struggled, the guards loosening their grip out of sheer shock. Arthur's chest felt tight, constricting. The champagne-soaked glamour of the gala melted away, replaced by the cold reality of his life, built on the backs of others he had turned away. He felt dizzy, the ground beneath him shifting. "Tell him, Samantha! Tell him about the letter!" Samuel shouted, the pain and fury breaking through. "Wait! What letter?" Arthur's voice was shaky, dread pooling at the pit of his stomach. "The letter that connects you to everything. Samantha said, her eyes pleading. "It carries the reason why you lost everything in the first place." The hall fell into a hush, all eyes darting between them. "What do you mean?" Arthur pressed, every nerve in his body tingling with anxiety. But just as Samantha opened her mouth to speak, alarms began to blare through the hall. Loud, insistent, percussive. Panic erupted. People shouted, scrambling for the exits. Arthur found himself staring at Samuel again. That fierce look, igniting a spark of recognition. A spark that threatened to consume him. Brothers bound by blood, yet divided by choices, secrets, and pain. They were on the brink of connection when the world exploded around them. As lights flickered and the chaos unfolded, Arthur's heart raced. Was this the moment of reckoning? The truth was fracturing the facade he'd built, leaving him standing at the brink of a choice that would change everything. Would he stand with his brother? Or was he still too consumed by fear to act? The urgency hung in the air, unanswered questions gripping their hearts tight. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Arthur felt his heart race. The weight of Samuel's gaze pulling him closer to a past he had long tried to bury. The laughter and clinking glasses faded into a dull roar, like a distant storm waiting to break. Arthur stepped forward, the polished soles of his shoes tapping against the marble floor, moving instinctively toward this man who fought for his dignity. But before he could act, a sudden crash echoed through the hall. A loud, shattering sound, like glass breaking amid a party. The crowd gasped, eyes snapping to the source of the chaos. A giant chandelier overhead swayed dangerously, a crystal fragment breaking loose, and Samuel creado su neca, ojos guados en desesperación, los guardias momentáneamente se fueron erecto. Would it crush him as quickly as the world seemed to crush everyone left behind? But instead of falling, the chandelier hung there, dangling precariously, a whisper of uncertainty hanging in the air. Arthur's body tensed. Was this some divine sign? A second later, a figure burst through the crowd, pushing past the elite with wild urgency. It was a woman, young, fiery, determination radiating from her. She had curly hair that framed her face in a wild halo, her eyes blazing with intent. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the murmur of shock. All heads turned to her. Curiosity ignited as she approached Samuel. "You can't just treat him like this. Who do you think you are?" One of the guards tried to push her back, but she didn't flinch. With a fierce resolve, she reached into her bag and produced a crumpled newspaper. The headline was bold, glaring. "Untold Truths, the Forgotten Heroes," it read. She held it up for all to see. Arthur's heart dropped. There, front and center, was a picture of Samuel during his time as a young soldier, medals gleaming on his chest. But there was more. A photograph of Arthur, a younger version of himself, just behind Samuel in the image. Gasps erupted around them, whispers spreading like wildfire. "Do you know him? He was part of that unit?" The air turned electric. Arthur's mind raced, confused. How did she have that? How did he forget? That bond, lost in the fog of wealth and status, resurfaced in mere seconds. The past had a way of clawing back to the surface, and here it was, shattering the immaculate shield he had built around himself. As the crowd buzzed with disbelief, Samuel's expression morphed. Pain turned to recognition, then shock as the realization sank in. Arthur hadn't just moved on. He had moved away. The man who was once his comrade was now a distant figure in a tailored suit. With renewed urgency, the young woman yelled, "He deserves more than pity! He's a hero!" Arthur felt the world close in. His carefully crafted image began to buckle under the weight of truth. Resentment, anger, mercy, they rolled through him like a torrent. He looked at Samuel, a man whom he had known, had fought beside, and now, here he was, a ghost in the echoes of their shared past. The tension saturated the air, the crowd roiling with newfound energy, secrets unraveling before their eyes. Hearts raced, breaths caught. Everything Arthur built stood on the brink of collapse, teetering between his past friendship and a relentless present. Would he reach for dawn, or let the darkness reclaim him? The chandelier hung perilously above, a reminder that nothing was ever truly safe. What would he choose? Arthur's breath slammed into his throat. Silence wrapped around him like a vice, every heartbeat echoing in his ears. Samuel's gaze pierced through the noise, relentless and fierce, as if he sought answers only Arthur could provide. The tension crackled in the air, thick and palpable, holding everyone captive. Then it happened. A sudden crash reverberated through the hall, shattering the moment. The grand chandelier overhead trembled. A group of masked figures burst in through the doors, clad in dark clothing, faces obscured. Gasps swept through the crowd, their laughter dying in a collective bewilderment. No one moved. Every eye was wide, shock painted across finely manicured faces. "Get down!" one of the masked intruders shouted, voice sharp as a knife. Chaos erupted. People screamed. Glasses shattered. Some dove for cover. Others stumbled backward, trying to flee. But Arthur stood frozen, his eyes locked on Samuel, who looked equally bewildered. The world around them faded, and in that moment, it was just the two of them amid the clamor. Then a deafening bang, a gunshot. Panic swelled, and the crowd erupted in frenzied flight. Arthur's heart raced. A cold sweat broke across his forehead. Was someone shot? Had someone been hurt? He forced himself to look away from Samuel, who was still watching him, confusion morphing into terror. "Stay down!" The masked figure shouted again, and raised a heavy, automatic weapon, pointing it at the ceiling, a warning to those still crouched and gasping. "Everyone out!" another voice barked. But this one was different, deeper, almost familiar. Intrigued, Arthur's heart sank again. "Samuel!" he shouted, but the man barely heard, lost in the rush of bodies trying to escape. The chaos turned the room into a living whirlwind, but somehow Samuel came back into focus, his steady gaze still locked on Arthur. Then vulnerability surged through the wild. Samuel lifted his hand, flashing something shiny. A letter. "It's important," he shouted, his voice above the chaos, urgent and desperate. "It can help you. Trust me." But before Arthur could process, a loud crash echoed. One of the masked intruders had shoved his way to the front, knocking furniture aside like it was nothing. And Arthur recognized him. A former business partner from long ago. Someone he thought had vanished into obscurity, lost in the shadows of his past. "Arthur, you never thought you'd see me again, did you?" The man grinned, but it was twisted. "Everything you have, it's about to come crashing down." Arthur felt like he had been punched in the gut. Why was he here? What was going on? He turned to Samuel, confusion making his chest tighten even more. "What's happening?" he barked, genuinely lost. But Samuel was on his feet now, fighting against the tide of fleeing bodies, determination writing his fate. "The letter, Arthur! The truth will unravel your empire!" As the sound of sirens began to wail in the distance, drowning out the chaos inside, the masked man stepped closer to Arthur. Fear replaced confusion as he reached for him, his face illuminated by the flickering light of the chandelier overhead. "It's all connected, Arthur. You have no idea what you're protecting." Time froze. The world spiraled into chaos around him, yet all Arthur could hear was his own pulse hammering in his ears, his heart racing against the fragile promise of his carefully curated life. As he glanced at Samuel, a fire of hope still burned in those fierce eyes. But Arthur knew everything was about to shift. And as the weight of secrets pressed down mercilessly, a single thought clawed at his mind. What if Samuel held the key to everything he wanted to hide? The sirens blared louder, and in that moment of despair and uncertainty, Arthur realized he stood at a precipice. Would he jump into change or cling to the lies that had built his life? The questions clawed at his insides, and the room held its breath, waiting for him to decide. Arthur felt his heart race, approaching a breaking point as the masked figure loomed closer, words swirling in confusion around him. Samuel stood firm. Determination. "You have to believe me." Before Arthur could process the chaos, he saw a familiar face amidst the turmoil. Derek, that former business partner. A smile frozen on his lips, eyes glinting with something darker. "You think this is just about you?" he spat, venom curling around his words. "You don't know a single thing about family, do you?" The room bristled with tension. Arthur felt bile rise in his throat. "What do you mean?" But before he could demand an explanation, the lights above flickered, creating a strobe-like effect that heightened the panic. The shadows danced wickedly, making everything seem like a fever dream. And then silence fell, as if the air itself held its breath. "Listen!" Derek's voice sliced through the stillness, and everyone turned toward him, caught between fear and anticipation. "Arthur, did you really think you were the only one who could keep secrets?" Arthur's pulse quickened, confusion turned to dread. "What secrets?" His voice was a lower growl, hinting at the anger brewing within. Derek took a step forward, tightening his grip on the gun as though it tethered him to the moment. "I have evidence," he continued, smug satisfaction oozing from his words. "About everything. Your father's past, your mother." He paused, letting the words hang heavy in the space between them. "What about my—" But the words escaped him, breaths turning shallow. A tightness constricted around his throat. "Your mother!" Derek smirked, malicious glee sparking in his eyes. "She had her own history, you know? Unraveled in Colombia. Deals made, Blood spilled. You thought she was innocent? She was wrapped up in it all, and so are you. The words crashed into Arthur like a tidal wave, dragging him under, drowning him in uncertainty. No, they couldn't be true. But the memory of his mother's smile morphed into shame, twisting their shared history into something grotesque. "Samantha, tell him!" Samuel shouted, breaking through the fear gripping the space. "Tell him it was to protect him, protect us all. We were family." "Family," Derek echoed, laughter ringing hollow as the crowd murmured. "Family means nothing in the game. It's about power. And you, Arthur, you've just inherited a storm." Chaos loomed, reactions bubbling up within the crowd, whispers transforming into shouts. "Get away from him!" shouted a voice from the back, a familiar face emerging through the fray. It was the woman from before, stepping forward, gun drawn, fire in her eyes. "I know what you did, Derek." Arthur's body froze. "Lucy?" "Yes! Your mother's life was never just yours, Arthur," she shouted, jaw set. "She tried to shield you from this." As the truth stormed through his mind, a weight pressed down on Arthur's chest. Secrets, lies, family twisted in contradictions, and betrayal lurked just out of sight. Derek seemed ready to react, but before he could, everything changed again. A deafening roar echoed outside. The crowd stood still, then surged violently as reality splintered. The doors burst open, and a wall of police officers flooded the hall, shouting orders, weapons aimed. Gasps filled the space as confusion shattered into panic. "Drop it!" they barked, chaos erupting anew. "There, it's him!" someone shouted, pointing to Derek. The room exploded into frenzied movement. Bodies pushed against one another, scrambling for safety. In the chaos, Arthur caught a glimpse of Samuel's face and recognized something deeper, a desperate plea for understanding. But as he turned, he caught sight of Lucy's determined stance, and fear spiraled within him. Then another shot rang out, not the gunfire from Derek, but a loud crack like thunder. The crowd recoiled, their instincts screaming. In that moment, the world twisted, as if all the threads of his life had been yanked sharply, unraveling everything he thought he understood. He looked back at Samuel and Lucy. The weight of betrayal gained a new depth, and fear coursed through him. What had his mother done? What had he become? The room was chaos, dark shadows swirling around, and as Arthur stood on that precipice of revelation and dread, he felt the ground beneath him split open. Nothing could be taken back. But would he dare to dive into the storm? Or would he, too? The walls of his world closed in, questions hanging thick and unanswered. The air buzzed with tension, the weight of secrets pressing down. And as he stood there, taking everything in, he couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom looming just past the chaos. As Arthur stood at the edge of chaos, the air thick with fear and truth, the sirens wailed louder, drowning out the fray. Derek's face twisted in a grotesque smirk, the weight of unspoken secrets hanging between them. The crowd surged, anxiety pulsing like a trapped animal ready to bolt. "Truth?" Derek laughed, a harsh bark that cut through the tension. "What truth can you really bear, Arthur?" His voice dropped, laced with venom. "You think that family means safety? You're wrong." A tremor danced down Arthur's spine. He turned to Samuel again, trying to decipher the storm brewing behind his eyes. But just then, a sudden and chilling noise echoed from the main entrance, metal scraping against metal, followed by a sickening thud. Everyone froze. Derek's laughter faded, replaced by a dreadful anticipation. The masked intruders turned their attention toward the sound, weapons ready. But it wasn't an officer or a resisting member of the crowd that walked in next. A figure stepped through the doorway, shadows enveloping them like darkness itself. The room felt electric, air thick, hearts racing. "Stay back," called a voice, sharp and commanding. Everyone gasped. Arthur felt his stomach drop as he recognized the voice that had haunted his past, the voice of his mother, alive and standing before him. "Mom?" The words slipped from his lips like a prayer. His pulse thundered in his ears, the chaotic world melting away. She looked older, worn with hard truths, but it was her. She was here, and she was not alone. Derek's smirk faltered, replaced by shock. "What? You?" Ignoring him, she stepped forward, eyes blazing with a ferocity Arthur had never seen. Behind her, another figure emerged. A man, rugged and battle-worn, with scars etched into his skin. Samuel's eyes widened as he whispered a name that shattered the moment. "Dazed?" Arthur's mind reeled. His mother wasn't just back, she was tethered to everything he had tried to outrun. "Get away from my son!" she shouted, fury spiraling within her tone as she drew nearer. "I don't want you near him!" The words exploded, ricocheting through the hall, fueling the chaos. "Mom, where have you been?" he gasped, the depth of his emotions cracking him wide open. Hope and fear tangled together, clawing at his heart. "I had to protect you!" she cried, tears streaming down her face like a torrential downpour. "You don't understand. The truth I ran from, it's part of all of us." Arthur took a step forward, desperation clawing at him. But why now? What do you mean?" At that moment, Derek lunged, and suddenly it was a flash of chaos. The room erupted into screams, people ducking, scrambling for safety. "Stop!" his mother screamed, grabbing Arthur. But Derek had already pulled the trigger, a deafening shot splitting the air. A gasp followed, and everything fell still. Arthur felt the world slow as his heart sank. The bullet didn't hit his mother, it struck the man next to her, David. The impact sent him sprawling backward, collapsing into a nearby table, glass and food exploding into the air like confetti in a nightmare. "No!" Samuel shouted, horror ripping through the chaos. Arthur's stomach twisted. Blood pooled beneath David, the life slipping away. Everything turned dark. The dreams, the safety he thought he had, shattered in a single moment. "Why?" Arthur cried, voice choked. "Why would you do this?" The echoes of chaos faded, replaced by the heavy silence of revelation. His mother stumbled forward, hands stained with crimson. "I thought it was over. I thought I could keep you safe." But her voice broke as she cradled David, tears streaming anew. Derek stood frozen, caught between triumph and dismay. The twisted smirk vanished. The moment hung suspended, like a final act unfolding before an unwelcome curtain fall. Arthur's mind spiraled. His mother's purpose? What was happening? Was this the truth that could destroy everything? What had they been running from? As dread crushed against him, murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Everything he thought he knew twisted bewilderingly, and he was left standing, not in safety, but at the edge of chaos, symptoms of a deeper storm brewing. What secrets lay beneath the surface now? What would this loss unravel? The air crackled with tension, unanswered questions gnashing at their edges, leaving the room on the brink of implosion. Arthur's heart ached as he watched David slump to the floor. The room erupted in chaos. A cacophony of screams and desperate shouts swallowed the lingering tension. His mother, tears streaming down her face, cradled David's head in her lap, as if trying to hold on to the shreds of life slipping away. "Stay with me! Stay with me!" she cried, urgency cracking through her voice. David's eyes flickered, a shadow of recognition passing over his face, but the breath left his body, and the light in his eyes dimmed. "No!" Samuel shouted, fury igniting as he tried to break free from the guards once more. Arthur felt his own rage bubbling, boiling over, threatening to consume him. Derek, the twisted smirk gone, stepped back, shock washing over him. The world spun dangerously around Arthur, the laughter and glamour of the gala dissolving into a nightmare. "Samantha!" Samuel shouted, turning to his sister. "We can't let this happen! Help him! He deserves justice!" "Justice?" Derek scoffed, bitter contempt lacing his words. "What's justice worth when you're all buried in lies?" Arthur's fists clenched, every fiber of his being screaming for action. "What the hell have you done?" he roared, his voice breaking through the chaos. "What did you do, Derek?" "I was freeing you!" Derek barked back, panic creeping into the edges of his bravado. The crowd moved around them like a tide. Some still crouched in shock, while others fled toward the exits, leaving chaos in their wake. Amidst the turmoil, Arthur felt a rush of clarity. He turned back to his mother, who was still kneeling beside David. "Mom, what is happening? Why are all of these lives caught in this web?" She looked up, eyes wild with desperation and pain. "I thought I could shield you, but it was too late. Your father was involved in so many things that it became too dangerous. I had to save you from knowing." She paused, her breath hitching, trying to regain composure. "But now, you need to know the truth." "Enough with the riddles," Arthur shouted, in a mixture of anger and fear. "Tell me now." But before she could answer, Samuel broke free from the guard's grasp. "Arthur, we're in this together. We're family. It's time to stand up and face this." And as if the universe had answered their call, a voice from the back of the room shouted, "Stop this madness!" In rose several police officers, their badges gleaming under the lingering chandelier lights. "Everyone on the ground now!" they commanded, weapons drawn, creating a wall of authority. Derek froze, eyes darting around as panic overtook him. "You won't take me!" he yelled. But Samuel stepped forward, speaking with resolve. "They won't take anyone. You brought this on yourself. Enough running." Officers began to disperse the crowd, but Arthur stood rooted in place, the weight of the world crashing down on him. Family, betrayal, blood, it all circled around him like a hurricane. He turned back to Samuel, who was now beside his mother, helping her with David. "David!" she yelled, shaking him gently, tears dripping into his hair. The life had gone from him. Derek raised his hands, caught, desperate. "This isn't over, Arthur," he threatened. But the police moved in closer, pressing him against the wall. Arthur's heart pounded, a tangle of emotion swirling within. He had always chased wealth, a gilded life, but now it felt empty, hollow. "What do we do?" he finally asked, looking at Samuel and his mother, who were both breathless, faced with the harsh truth of loss. "Together," Samuel replied, his voice steady. "We take the fight to them. We expose everything." His eyes shone with determination, igniting the flicker of hope within Arthur. As the police resumed control, officers began to move toward Derek, cuffing him as he struggled. Arthur watched, something inside him breaking free. He had spent so long building walls, but now it was time to dismantle them. He stepped forward, joining Samuel and his mother, a powerful solidarity in their unity. "We will unveil the truth together," he declared. The weight of the world still heavy, but lighter than it had ever been. And as the sirens wailed outside, Arthur felt the grip of his past release, making way for a future filled with possibilities. The chaos may not be over, but for the first time, he knew they would face it as family. As the dust began to settle, Arthur took a deep breath, knowing the journey was far from over. They would fight together, digging deep into the truth behind all the lies. But just as the thought settled, in the back of his mind, doubt crept in. Would the unravel the past? Samuel and his mother looked at him, ready for whatever lay ahead. But was he truly prepared for the shadows still ahead? The night felt alive with unanswered questions, tensions hanging in the air, thick with possibilities. What other secrets lay waiting? And as Arthur ventured into the unknown, the faint echoes of the past whispered, urging him forward. A journey not yet complete. You have to subscribe now. Don't wait even a second longer to share this amazing adventure. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm so we can keep bringing you these exclusive stories. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What do you think happened next? This is the moment to show your support. And remember to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Let's spread the word.